So this is part 2 of my story that I shared yesterday on the incident that happened to me when I was 12 years old. Today I want to talk to you about the myths of grief and how I can now look back and reflect on what are some of the things that I believed that kept me stuck in this place of isolation and not wanting to talk about it, shame, and minimizing my grief. So the first one was the myth of being strong. Now, you've heard in some of my other videos that I come from a family of strong, both men and women. And so the belief of being strong meant that you don't cry in front of others, that you don't talk about, things that make people feel uncomfortable or that are not nice, that are not about happy and joyful things. And so being strong was one of those things that I was taught early on as a child. And I believed that, even though my mom and dad never said I had to be strong around this. Well, maybe they did. When I was going into court, I remember that conversation, kind of coaching me through it. Be tough when you go in there, baby. You'll do good. You'll be fine. Be brave, be courageous, right? The other thing was to grieve alone. And grieving alone for me was immediate because I really was embarrassed. I was confused. And then those adults in that courtroom, the jury, that made me feel like they didn't believe me or that it was my fault. So I decided that I couldn't do this or feel this or talk about this with people. So I grieved alone, and grieving alone meant just being stuck in my own fears and my own confusion and not really understanding what I had gone through or what had taken place in that moment. The other one was don't feel bad. And the don't feel bad comes a lot around the Catholic religion that I grew up in, right? Don't feel bad, give it up to God, things like that. But the other part of don't feel bad was minimizing my grief. I was groped, I was touched for a few seconds. The man watched me, which was really creepy, for a few minutes as I was trying to get out of the car. But I wasn't raped. He didn't get underneath my shorts or my panties. He didn't do really, really bad things to me. And so I minimized my grief, and it made me believe that I shouldn't feel bad about what happened to me and that I just need to move on and get over it because he touched me for a brief second. And so I struggled with that because I really felt that people wouldn't understand, and those were the thoughts that were running through my head, that if I shared that with anybody, that's what they would tell me, because that's what I was starting to believe for myself was, be thankful, Dar, that you weren't raped. And so as a child, I kept all of those feelings stuck inside of me because I felt like what happened to me wasn't really that bad, so I needed to get over it, however that happened. And then the other one was keeping busy. And keeping busy meant getting involved in anything. Like when I was a teenager, I was always involved in something. I wasn't one of those teenagers that wanted to stay home and watch TV or whatever. Like I always kept myself busy. I always kept myself surrounded with people. And a lot of that now I realize is because if I was alone, if I was stuck in isolation without, just doing something, then those thoughts gravitated back to what happened to me that day, and it was a very uncomfortable place to be. So I kept myself busy. So I realize all of that stuff now that I understand grief, and I've done the grief recovery method, and I continue to teach the grief recovery method with people. The myths of grief undoubtedly, hands down, keep people stuck in whatever losses or trauma that have happened in their life. And as a child, imagine believing some of those myths because that's how you were raised and that's what we were taught. And you can define or perceive those those myths in different ways. But the bottom line is they're still myths. And so if you are one of those people that believe those myths that I talked about, grieving alone, being strong or being strong for others, keeping busy, don't feel bad. If you believe those things, then you are stuck in this place of unresolved issues in your life. And I invite you to direct message me and let's talk about how it can help you through your healing journey. Like I am discovering so many things still in my own life, but that grief recovery method that I continue to work through on myself, and that grief recovery method that I teach others is helping to transform your place of darkness and isolation to a place of joy and wisdom. So I invite you to direct message me if you're one of those people that are stuck. I would love to hear your story, and I would love to help you through your healing journey.